Vala Morgulis. Hi everyone, I'm Sandrine, this is Americ.
Hello.
We'll continue Game of Thrones review. This week's episode was called
Book of the Stranger.
Let's talk about it.
Quick
First,
thoughts?
Some quick thoughts. Yes.
Quick thoughts, yes?
So Brienne pretty much confirmed that Stannis is dead. So for people who still thought he might not be dead,
You know, I'm still...
he's dead.
What is that?
Osha is kaput.
I guess someone had to die.
Yeah.
Because it's a Game of Thrones episode.
Well, you kind of saw it coming,
But
right?
what's the point? Like, that's a waste of a character, don't you think?
Yeah,
That was a
they
waste
could
of
have
a
done more
character.
with
They
her.
could have done more with that. I'm not saying, like, he could have just kept her and tortured her, which is, you know, Ramsay's thing. But I felt like there was more we could have done with that character. Just bringing her back, thinking, okay, maybe there's something behind it, maybe there's a plan of some sort, and then, no, we're just killing her.
It seems like we learned a little more about grayscale and how it's transmitted, because I think we were still wondering, well, do you have to touch just the person? Do you have to touch it? And Jorah told Dario, oh, don't worry, it hasn't touched you.
Yeah, exactly.
Which implies, I think, that you have to touch a grayscale in order to
Which kind of makes sense,
It makes
right?
sense, yeah.
Because he had touched, you know, Daenerys, and clearly she hasn't really...
Although Daenerys is special. So, yeah.
Daenerys is special in more ways than one.
But he didn't know that.
He
so
didn't
yes.
know that, yeah, for sure.
Theon is back in Pike home. I thought the reunion scene was
fitting.
It was yeah.
It was fitting.
touching.
It was right. It was touching is not the word I would use, but it was
Theon,
fitting.
I just
You know, I think that I've come to a different perspective with Theon as a general rule. Up until very recently, I always thought of him as a coward, but one of you left a very, very good comment, basically showing that Theon has actually been one of the bravest of them all, in some ways more than one, and I'll sort of like link to the screenshot of that comment here. In this particular case, not quite sure how it's gonna work out. I'm thinking that he's gonna probably give his support to his sister, as he has been very clear about. Whether that support means anything,
I think it's gonna be really hard for Yara to get the throne.
First woman on the Salt Throne.
Yeah. I'm Team Yara, right?
All the ladies, let's do it.
And Torment and Brienne.
Sparks were flying, though.
Well, sparks are flying.
Were totally flying.
For Torment.
I totally had that meme, you know, the Ryan Gosling meme where it's like,
hey girl, you know, would you mind if I cut off a head and brought it to you on a plate?
Moving on to the High Sparrow and the Faith Militant.
I think the moment between the High Sparrow and Marjorie was very telling. He was opening up and he was just basically explaining to her and trying to relate to her how he came to the faith, right? Like what was his moment where he realized that this wasn't it for him, right? So I honestly felt that this was a genuine moment. And I think it's the first time I actually have a really good idea of who the High Sparrow really is. It's not just some, you know, believer, the fanatic. There's some, you know, depth and substance to him. However, I also felt that it was a trick. I felt that this was an extension of his good cop routine, you know, with the priestess playing bad cop routine and, and him like coming in and saying, yeah, you know, I'm just trying to be reasonable with you. I'm like you. I came from where you came from and all that. But when Marjorie is brought to see Loras, which again is a trick to try and, you know, break her, which she knows.
Yeah.
It highlights in that moment that she has not been broken.
No.
She is still
Marjorie
standing strong.
Can see through all of it. But I think mostly because she uses some of the similar techniques herself. She, you know, the way she was like manipulating Joffrey a little bit and, you know, kind of doing her little act, it seems it's kind of parallel to what they're trying to do to her. And she's like, I know what you're doing because I know it. Like I do it too.
So yeah, it's clear that it's not quite working, but it's also clear that Marjorie's got some spunk.
And speaking of Marjorie, it seems like they're getting her ready to do the Walk of Torment.
The Walk of Shame.
The Walk of Shame. It just can't happen.
Especially if it's the queen, right? Like the mother of the king is one thing, but it's just the mother of the king. The queen doing that is unacceptable. It's unacceptable for obviously the Tyrells, right? Because it would really bring shame to their name, which is already bad enough. But it's also bad for the kingdom because it would actually, I think, bring down the throne, like the value of it, quite a bit. Even Cersei said herself, it doesn't matter whether I like her or not. She's the queen. And
it's what she represents.
What she represents that's important, that needs to be protected. And I think in that moment, the Tyrells and the Lannisters,
they have a common enemy.
They have a common enemy.
Let's bring them down, and then we can resume to not liking each other.
Which I think will bring us to the scene where Jaime is basically taking on the command of the Tyrell army as they face down the fate Militant. It's going to be a very interesting moment.
Yeah.
I think the violence scene is also going to come. I choose violence?
I choose violence.
I think that's coming.
You choose violence too! Now moving on to Tyrion, who's taking a different approach than violence in this case.
Yes.
A more diplomatic approach.
Obviously, Missandei and Grey Worm are not really feeling his approach, right? Because they're coming from the perspective as, we used to be slaves. You understand that the reason why we followed Daenerys is because she understood that, and we believed wholeheartedly in her vision of no more slavery starting now.
Well, yeah, as a slave, one more day of slavery is probably too much.
Is probably too much.
But then that's why you need to have, Tyrion, who looks at the bigger picture, is like, yeah, but if you just stop now, it's never going to last.
I think this is where Tyrion's brilliance really is showing. Because he's making the point that slavery is a phenomenon akin to war. You don't just stop war because you say so, right? Unless you literally kill every single person that's ever been involved in slavery, you're not stopping slavery, right? It's impossible. You can't just outlaw or banish slavery that way because it's not just a system, it's also a way of thinking. And I think that by Tyrion setting it up and saying 7 years, which on its face looks unacceptable because it is 7 years where you're degrading people. But it does certain things, right? First of all, you're sending a message. You're saying there's an end date to this. There's an expiration to this. So because it's coming, you need to prepare yourself and you need to change for it. So you're already starting to change mentalities. Even the slaves know that this is only gonna last 7 years versus my entire natural life, right? Like there's an end to this. And at first people are gonna like, oh, it's not gonna happen, whatever. 7 years, we'll find a way around it and all that. But in those 7 years, that's when the real work is really gonna start. That's when you're really gonna start changing the mentalities. And one after the other, you're gonna have people just suddenly move away from that. Not suddenly, but that's when it's going to happen. And I think that's a far more mature and a far more efficient way of changing things, really changing things, not just wanting them to change and not happening.
And I like that he's actually proving his point by bringing them some whores, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, they're not slaves. But I can guarantee you're still going to have a great time. You might even have a better time.
I know.
Because they're willing. He appealed to men with women and money, which is like the two key things that if you want to convince someone. So he's like, here are women, and I don't come from any slavery thing.
And I'm richer than all of you.
Put together. I don't know if it's put together.
Boom.
But yeah, mic drop.
Tyrion out.
Moving on to Sansa and John. Oh my god. Oh my god. The whole time I'm like, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god, it's happening. Oh my god, it's happening. Oh my god, it's happening. We've been waiting for so long for like the Starks to meet each other again, right? They've been apart for so long. They haven't been in the same place since season 1. It was beautiful.
Yeah, she was like,
oh my god.
It felt like a massive moment. It was a historic moment. I think we all wanted this. Now it's the Arya and Bran
and
Rickon meeting up.
Hopefully. I do feel like this is like the first step towards the end of the series a little bit. Because characters are then meeting again. Because you've like separated them. They're all going, and then it's like you're slowly bringing them back together. Hopefully no more Starks will die. But, that's it. You've shattered it, and then
what
now
if this
you're
is how
rebuilding
they win?
it.
This is how they begin
coming back
winning.
Together?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because now, think about it, right? Like, a lot of what's happening now is that you're getting Starks coming together with forces that believe in them like just as leaders, like we want to follow you. They didn't have to like rule them, conquer them, or anything like that.
And I think also something that's probably helpful for them is that they don't want the throne. They just want the North. Like they just want their home, really, Winterfell. That could play in their favor.
And that's while Jon had some reservations at first.
Ramsay is like, hey, let me send a letter.
A letter. Oh my God. It was such a childish, trollish-like email. Like, hey, just trying to be like, hey, come see. Come see what I will do to your family. Come see. Like, just basically taunting him. But at the same time, he was like, oh, bitch, you want to go? Let's go. Because now he's got to get the wildlings. And based on next episode and the preview of next episode,
they might
Sansa
get the Eyrie.
might get the Eyrie to back them up as they go on to take on
I feel like Littlefinger owes her that for marrying her off to Ramsay.
Yeah, he definitely owes her that.
I also wanted to mention the scene between Jon and Sansa when Sansa is asking him to forgive her for being a brat and not really nice to him and making wrong decisions. And I feel like this also echoes what we've been thinking of her this whole time. Is like, what are you doing, Sansa? When she's like, I want to marry Joffrey. You're like, no, you don't. You really don't. And even she's like, oh God, what was wrong with me?
What was I thinking?
And this is the, growing up part. When you look back at yourself and you're like, wow.
Sansa has changed quite a bit as a character.
Well, yeah.
Like, I don't remember liking her in the first couple of seasons. I was like, ugh, she's so annoying.
Yeah.
But now I'm actually really rooting for her to succeed.
Definitely.
Rooting for her family to succeed.
And finally, we're moving on to Daenerys, which is like season 1 remix times 100.
Oh, that woman is like slay. She slayed the heck out of them.
Yeah.
She came into that room and she knew. And she was like, oh, you guys are gonna go. I just didn't know how they were gonna go.
Yeah, when you saw her smirk, you're like, oh, she's got a plan. But yeah, you're just like,
I don't know what it is.
How is she gonna do? I was like, is Drogon back? Like, what's
I was like, how are you gonna take them on? Like, I was like, is it the women that are gonna help you? I didn't quite understand how she was gonna do it. But when she put her hand.
And then she's just like...
Because I remember the scene from the trailer where we put her hand, but I thought it was going to be like she'd pull her hand and they'll be like, oh my God, you are indeed a mother of dragon.
I know.
But like, that's such a lame way of doing it. And then I was like, oh my God, thank God for David and Dan for thinking of a much better, cooler outcome.
And then when she comes out...
And she got real.
Yeah. It's similar to season 1 when she had a few people still left and they were like, holy shit. But now it's like on this huge scale of like massive army. So she's got even more people who are going to follow her. Even Dario was like, what? And he knew.
He was following her.
He hadn't seen it.
But now he believed. You could see him pray, like belief. There was belief in him. Here's the thing. Now she has the Dothraki. She has the dragons. She has the Unsullied. Almost like she has to lose. This is Game of Thrones. She has to lose. She's too powerful. She's just too good. It'll be too big of a fight. Like at this point, they have to make her lose. But anyways, such a cool moment. Such a cool moment. Such a great way of ending the episode. But that's what we thought of this episode. What did you think of this episode? What were your favorite moments? What are you hoping for the upcoming episode? Comment below. Let us know.
Also, if you want to talk some more about the episode, we have weekly live discussions with Kenny at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time on this channel.
Live.
So, live.
You can come in and chat.
And we answer your questions and we talk about the episode and we go crazy. So, yeah, join us. Thank you guys so much for watching and we'll see you soon. Bye. What should be their ship name?
Oh, Brienne and Thormund?
Trianne.
No, that's horrible. Bormund. Bormund, I feel like Bormund.
That sounds like this doesn't sound really nice.
Bormund doesn't sound nice?
No.
Trianne.
Hold on.
Trianne. Who's with me? Trianne. Who's with me?
That's what I said. Trianne.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds better when I say it. Trianne is a ship name. Guys, we've decided the ship name for Brienne and Thormund
is Tormund and Brienne. But what about Podrick though?
No. Shut up. Shut your face. Trianne, guys. #Trianne.